Welcome to CEC Gurukul lecture. A very happy new year to all the viewers and listeners. In continuation with the series on lecture on Indian sociological tradition, today I am going to talk about a very important sociologist, one of the founding figure of Indian sociology, and that's no other than Professor M.N. Srinivas. I'll try to look into the biography of Professor Srinivas and his contribution in the development of this indigenous discipline of sociology in India. Professor Srinivas is considered as one of the main builders of the discipline of sociology in India, and he kind of gives us new ways of trying to study our own society, and therefore it becomes very relevant to understand the life and work of M.N. Srinivas. To start off, we know that he is considered as first generation sociologist in post-independent India, because this is a time where the discipline of sociology was emerging, was coming up, and he, along with Professor Ghurye, D.P. Mukherjee, R.K. Mukherjee and many others, were trying to create an atmosphere for a sociological study of society in India. And therefore, we can. His idea is actually he's writing at the time of independence, at the time when India is undergoing a large-scale transformation. But his theories or his writings is not limited to the idea of nation building, which was one of the key concern of most of the sociologists and political scientists and other academics and scholars. He was kind of very holistic in his approach, right from trying to give us a new way of understanding caste system, to the study of village, to the understanding of even the way in which the constitution was trying to give a new shape to the Indian society. He covers it all in a large number of texts and articles that he is part of. Now, most important thing that we will learn in this lecture is, and the most unique thing about Professor Srinivas is that he gives us the field work or the field view, and this is very significant because he's trying to tell us how do we kind of enter into gathering, collecting empirical data, and this in the way is kind of different from what was a trend at that point of time, because most of the study on Indian society by Western scholars were based on book view. That is, they were reading existing literature in the form of religious text and other texts in order to kind of arrive at what India was, and most of the time it kind of reflected a limited view. It gave us a Brahminical view of Indian society where caste system was put into a negative light. It was considered as a closed group. So, as we kind of look into most of the sociology textbook of class 11, 12 in the earlier periods, say 10 decades back, most students were taught to kind of make a distinction between caste as a closed group and class as an open group. Now, this caste as a closed group and class as an open group was not only limited to the difference between caste and class, but it went on to the understanding of the nature of society in India as static and stagnant, whereas Western society, which is a class-based society, was mobile, was kind of progressive. So, that understanding or that idea of India as a static society comes in because much of the study is based on book view. Srinivas will tell us that we need to go to the field, collect data, talk to people and learn the way of life, and then try to understand society. So, when we look into his entire biography in terms of his where he was born, how he was brought up and all, it reflects a bit about the personality. So, let us look into it. M.N. Srinivas, his full name is Mysore Narasimhachar Srinivas. He was born in Brahmin family in Mysore on 16th November 1916. He passed the senior secondary school in 1931 and intermediate in 1933. He then joined Maharaja College in Mysore. He graduated with subject as social philosophy, sociology and social anthropology. So, this reflects that he was a student of sociology since his graduation. He joined Bombay University for his masters in sociology, where he was student of G.S. Ghurye. Now, I have already talked in the previous lecture that G.S. Ghurye is considered as a person who started off the Department of Sociology in Bombay University, and Srinivas was one of the first students of Ghurye. So, that kind of a mentor influence on the life of an individual becomes very important. It's also important to see that in Srinivas was kind of surrounded by people with from learned. One of his aunt was one of the women who was able to achieve education at a time when women were not allowed to go to school, and there were a lot of kind of an academic or an environment under which he was growing up. As he was a brilliant student throughout his college life, and when he was kind of into his masters, he wrote a dissertation, which was not necessarily a requirement in those days, but since he was a very different student, he was kind of a little brighter student, he was allowed to write. And it's quite surprising that his master's dissertation got published as Family and Marriage as a book in 1942. So, that was the brilliance with which he was growing up. Srinivas completed his doctorate under supervision of Professor Ghurye in 1944. His doctorate thesis was of 2 volumes of 900 pages based on ethnographic study of Kurds. Now, the number is not necessarily trying to tell that it's a kind of lengthy dissertation. What it's kind to reflect is that since it was a detailed a reflection of what was happening in society, and that's ethnography. Ethnography is a method in anthropology which gives us the understanding of society from the perspective of the respondent. So, it's kind of very detailed. It's not arriving at any assumption. It's not giving us grand statement. It's very descriptive. It's very narration kind of, and therefore, the number of pages kind of matters. But then it gives us a detailed analysis of the social cultural life of the Kurd society that Srinivas studied. Srinivas went to Oxford in 1945 to work for his second doctorate. In Oxford, he got an opportunity to work closely with A.R. Radcliffe Brown and Evans Pritchard. Now, to kind of tell that these both Radcliffe Brown and Evans Pritchard are kind of considered as the founding figures of anthropology, especially the method that is the ethnographic study. They kind of started off, A.R. Radcliffe Brown studied marriage, family and marriage in the African society and gave us the whole idea of how kinship can be understood through blood relation and genealogy. Similarly, Evans Pritchard's study of the Nuer of Africa tells us about the lineage and segmentary system of kinship system. So, with the influence that he achieved through being in touch with Radcliffe Brown and Evans Pritchard would kindly be reflected in his study on the religion, on caste, on village and other aspects of society in India. Radcliffe Brown as a supervisor was so impressed with his work that he exempted him from field work, because the doctorate thesis that Srinivas had written under the guidance of Ghurye was in itself an exhausted collection of field data. It has so much of field data that there was no need to go back to the field and do a second research. What Radcliffe Brown suggested was to kind of go back to your own data that you have collected, such a rich collection of data, and Srinivas was asked to analyze the same data from a different perspective. Earlier, when he was writing his doctorate under Ghurye, he was more in terms of an evolutionary perspective. Now, Radcliffe Brown himself was a structural functional. His understanding is from a structural functional perspective. So, the same was being advised to Srinivas to study the Kurd society from a structural functional perspective. And his research under the guidance of Radcliffe Brown was published as Religion and Society Among the Kurds in 1952. Now, this text is a very important text and prescribed in almost all undergraduate and postgraduate syllabus of in various universities in India and abroad, is the fact that this text will tell us how religion and society are kind of correlated and how religion functions through the structures of the different layers like the caste system, the village and the family. So, it becomes one of the classical texts for understanding society in India. In 1951, Srinivas felt homesick and returned from Oxford to join Maharaja Sayaraju University at Baroda. He became the first professor and the head of the newly opened Department of Sociology. He took up the challenge of building a Department of Sociology at different university. First is the University of Baroda. He also played an important role in setting up the Department of Sociology at University of Delhi. And it is very important that he was consistently in his role as a mentor and a teacher. So he kind of plays a very important role, and a large number of students of whom he supervised, individuals who completed the thesis, PhD degrees, very soon kind of got into the entire task of institutionalizing sociology in Indian university. Srinivas was professor of sociology at Maharaja Sayaraju University, Baroda, and University of Delhi. He was senior fellow sociology unit at Institute of Social and Economic Change, Bangalore, and J.R.D. Tata visiting professor at National Institute of Advanced Studies, Bangalore. Besides being a very important mentor, a supervisor, and a teacher, he also took up a lot of administrative assignment. So he was not only trying to ensure that the Department of Sociology kind of opens up in more university, but he was pushing through the administration, through this government, to ensure that sociology as a discipline becomes a more popular subject. And in that capacity, he was a chair of University of Grant Commission, and he drafted the status report on teaching of sociology, which developed the model syllabi. He was one of the 5 signatories of the Memorandum of Association that set up the Indian Council of Social Science Research. And we know that the ICSSR is one of the important institutions in the country which is kind of ensuring that all aspects of social, economic, cultural dimensions of Indian society are kind of researched, and it is kind of financed by the ICSSR. Now, when we look into an individual personality, we also need to look into how or what figures kind of influenced. How did he become a structuralist? How did he apply a structural functional perspective to understand Indian society? And therefore, it's very important to understand the influences in the life of individual. M.N. Srinivas was greatly influenced by a large number of anthropologists. To name, as we have already discussed, Rattler Brown, Evans Pritchard, Raymond Firth, Talcott Parson, Merton, Bottomore, and when we read his Religion and Society among the Coorg, we'll also see a reflection of Durkheim, Emile Durkheim in his work, because Emile Durkheim also gives us a functional perspective of religion in his book Elementary Forms of Religious Life. Srinivas is trying to kind of give us also a how it is kind of more functional in terms of structuring society. Srinivas derived his structural functional perspective of sociology from Rattler Brown's notion of structure, and we have already heard that Rattler Brown was teacher of Srinivas at Oxford University. Let's look into some of the books that was being authored by M.N. Srinivas. As I already said, the first book was published, was a part of his master's thesis, which was titled Marriage and Family in Mysore. In 1952, the same data which he collected in Mysore was published as his second doctorate thesis under Rattler Brown, and the title of the book is Religion Society Among Coorgs of South India. In 1955, Srinivas published India Villages. Now, this text, Indian Villages, is quite interesting because it will give us a completely new way, an alternative way of looking into Indian villages. 1962, Caste in Modern India and Other Essay. Now, when he starts writing about caste in modern India and other essay, Srinivas will bring in some of the important process like Sanskritization, Westernization, and the aspect that class mobility is possible in caste system. 1966, he published Social Change in Modern India. 1976, The Remembered Village. 1980, another text comes in which is Indian Social Structure and much more. In this, he'll be talking about the whole idea of how social transformation change is taking place in Indian society. 1986, Dominant Caste and Other Essay. This brings in another very important concept which was used by Srinivas to understand the nature of transformation, where caste kind of gets overplayed by other secular dimensions, where we will be looking into how the concept of dominant caste becomes an important to understand secular hierarchy of caste system. 1977, Dimension of Social Change in India. Here he will be looking into the whole idea that post-independent India, there was a certain kind of a silent revolution where people were kind of increasing the level of violence, and there is a kind of overhaul changing in the pattern of society, which is not very kind of expected. 1998, he writes Indian Society Through Personal Writings. And 1998, and a second book comes out, which is Village, Caste, Gender and Method. Now, this last book, which he writes about village, caste, gender and method, is kind of a combination of the entire research and publications that has been done over a period of say almost say 4 or 5 decades. So, it kind of brings in the all 3-4 dimensions which are important for understanding society in India, and that is that the 3 institutions, that is village, caste and family, are kind of important to understand, and method is obviously structural, functional and ethnographic. Now, after looking into the books that has been published by M.N. Srinivas, let us look into the theoretical and methodological perspective used or kind of reflected in his writing. Srinivas has initiated the tradition of macro-sociological generalization on micro-anthropological insight, and of giving a sociological sweep and perspective to anthropological investigation of small-scale communities. Now, here we kind of look into one of the most important contribution is in terms of the idea that we need to study society in its micro level, and therefore, it is very important that one particular community is selected for research, and in-depth ethnographic research is done over a period of time, and then some kind of argument or assumptions are arrived at. However, it was different from the existing trend of the time, where the attempt was to arrive at macro sociological generalization. For instance, the whole idea that Radcliffe Brown studied the African society and comes out with a genealogical way of understanding descent was later towards 1970s criticized, that it was only particular way in which blood can be looked into it, and therefore the whole idea of generalization was questioned. Srinivas is focusing not on generalization, but on intensive field work, on intensive research of a particular community, which would reflect his micro-sociological analysis. He made his field study of Coorg between 1940 to 42, and in his study he describes the concept of functional unity by explaining the interaction in ritual context of different castes of Coorg. When we look into the religion and society among the Coorg, he goes on to explain the ritual idioms. He goes on to talk about purity, sacred, non-sacred. He gives detailed classifications of aspects which would be considered as ritually pure, or something which would be considered as non-sacred, and it's a very detailed explanation of everyday life of the Coorgs, and there is how the structure of the society is regulated through the ritual idiom, which is the most important contribution that he has made. Then when we look into Professor Srinivas, as I have already said, that he was influenced by Radcliffe Brown, and he applies a structural functional approach. Now, the structural functional approach is one of the one of the initial method of studying in society, and in such a perspective, the understanding is that every structure in a society has a function, and it is important to understand the relation that each structure performs for the maintenance of the whole. So, that is what is kind of being taken care of. So, the structural functional approach is perspective in anthropology and sociology that sees society as a complex system whose parts work together to promote solidarity and stability. So, it is not seen as distinct from religion, is not seen as separate from the social structure. It is seen as a part of this complex whole, and it is through the functioning of religion that the structural unity is maintained. That is what was the argument made by structural functional perspective. It asserts that our lives are guided by social structure, which are relatively stable pattern of social behavior. So, every structure has a pattern, has an order, and what is the role of an anthropologist or a sociologist is to discover that pattern. Once that pattern is discovered, an attempt would be made to understand the structure. So, the social structure gives shape to our lives in families, the community, and through religious organization. Certain rituals such as handshake or complex religious ceremony give structures to our everyday life. Each social structure has social functions or consequences for the operation of society as a whole. The proponent of this perspective focus on understanding the ordering and pattern of social work. So, they are trying to figure a social functional perspective. An anthropologist is trying to figure out how the structure is there, how the order is there, and how the order would be sustained. So, one of the critique against structural functional perspective is that it does not look into the conflict side, that there could be a kind of difference, there could be a class. So, that is kind of it takes into structures as status quo, and that's what most of the functional perspective have done. The introduction of functionalist social anthropologists did allow Srinivas the space to initiate change in the methods used by Ghurye. So, though Srinivas is a student of Ghurye, he kind of differs a little bit from him, and he kind of extends Ghurye's methodology. So, Ghurye, as we've done in the previous lecture, is an Indologist. He kind of relies more on textual interpretation, more on a book view, whereas Srinivas, as I've already said, is a kind of a field view, an ethnographic study, and his focus is kind of not to rely solely on text and Indologist account. Srinivas brought about a paradigm change in sociology, and he is remembered for two paradigm change which he has initiated. First, as I've already said, that he brings in the field view. The field view compared to the book view. So, the book view is you rely on existing literature, you rely on text, that is the Indologist, the Orientalist have been doing it, and you come at a understanding of society in India. Whereas field view, you go to the field, study, do in-depth study and come out with your own findings. So, he is considered as this paradigm shift in and the second change that he brings in is in terms of bringing the structural functional perspective into Indian society. So, he is kind of published a large amount of book as we have already done about caste in modern India, social change, village, remembered village, and the most important thing for which we all kind of we should remember Srinivas and our recognition for it is the important concepts like Sanskritization, Westernization and dominant caste, which are very important for understanding society in India. With this, we have been able to understand the life and work of Professor M. N. Srinivas. Thank you.